Cheap versus expensive side cutters. That's what we're talking about today in this series of cheap versus expensive tools to help you decide whether it's worth paying a premium for posh tools or whether you should just buy the cheapest stuff on Amazon. Today we're looking at side cutters and we're comparing these £26 Knipex side cutters with these £6 Draper side cutters to see whether there's really any difference, and if so, is that difference worth 20 quid? So make sure you like and subscribe and let's jump into it. Now, as an electrician, side cutters are basically your bread and butter tool, right? What do you think of as an essential tool for an electrician? It's got to be a pair of side cutters. Knipex, of course, are known to be one of the premium brands when it comes to hand tools for electricians. However, they're pretty pricey. So my question was, is it really worth paying extra for Knipex when you can have what looks like a very similar tool for a quarter of the price? Well, that's what I'm going to try today. I'm going to put these to the test side by side and see whether there's really any difference. So the Knipex ones come in a nice cardboard box versus these Draper ones come in an annoying plastic thingy that you have to kind of rip to pieces to get the tool out. That is a little bugbear of mine, I must say, is when it comes to tools and stuff in general. There's a lot of wastage when it comes to packaging. Now I know this is recyclable, but it's still plastic that's just going to end up on a beach somewhere in Thailand clogging up a beautiful scene. So I prefer the fact that Knipex puts everything in a cardboard box. Now, for the sake of comparison, these are identical in size. They're 160mm side cutters. They are both, I believe, VDE rated. However, I did find it difficult to know for sure on Amazon whether these Draper ones are actually VDE rated or not. I bought them assuming they were because they've got insulated handles. However, there doesn't seem to be any writing on them that says that they're VDE rated. Now, VDE stands for Verband der Elektrotechnik. Basically, it's a German word that means that there's a certain company or group of people that have tested these to make sure that they are going to protect you against electric shock. Now, the Knipex ones are clearly VDE rated. They've got it written all over them. 1000 volt here, 1000 volt there. Made in Germany. It's pretty clear that these are safe, that if you cut through a live cable up to 1000 volts, you're insulated against shock. And that is really important when it comes to electricians' tools. Not that we should be working live, but if we accidentally cut through a cable, we're protected. Now, I was hoping these Draper ones would be VDE rated too, but unfortunately, looking at it, there is no sign on there whatsoever that they are. Ignoring the VDE rating, is there actually any difference? Well, they've both got ergonomic-ish handles. I would say that the Draper ones feel a little bit more plasticky and not as nice, not as soft a grip, versus the Knipex ones are a bit more rubbery, soft grip, easier to hold on to. What else, action-wise? So the action on the Knipex ones is very nice. They're nicely oiled up. Also, you've got these bits which are to stop you slipping and touching live parts while you might be cutting. These have the same, like finger guards, I suppose you would call them, but they're not as big. There's also a little quality issue here where you can see the plastic sort of leaked. The action on these is pretty good. They're fairly loose. And the blades, well, the Knipex ones are a lot shinier. They look like stainless steel or something. I doubt if they are stainless steel, but they're certainly high quality steel. These ones are a little bit darker. Now, it says that these are drop forged. I have no idea what that means. That's my initial thoughts from looking at them. But to really put them to the test, what we want to do is try and cut some cables. So let's do that now. And what better cable to cut than a bit of standard twin and earth? This is 1mm twin and CPC cable. And as you can see, the Knipex cuts through them really nice and easily. How about the Draper? Ooh, ha, wow. Okay, that is a surprising difference. Very, very interesting. So can you see that, how it's not cut all the way through the cable? Why? Because here there's a little notch the blade does not go all the way to the base. So actually, when I butt that right up and cut, it doesn't go all the way through. I've got to actually stand back slightly and cut like that, versus the Knipex where the blade goes all the way to the back. Now, that is something that I didn't even notice visually, but now that I've tried cutting the cables, I can see it quite clearly. It makes quite a big difference because you're not really going to be paying that much attention when you're cutting cables. You're just going to shove your cutters in and cut and do your thing. In terms of a mid-cut, these work really nicely. Same with these. There's not a huge amount of difference, to be honest, in the mid-cut. How about stripping the end of the cable? Often Sparkies do this, probably not supposed to, but they open up the end of the cable like that, and then they kind of go in, try and pull the CPC out like that. Oof. And they use the CPC to strip the cable like so. Very naughty, don't do it. If you've not got a proper pair of twin and earth strippers, then this is the way a lot of people do it. Now, I must admit, just doing that now, the end of this is quite stubby and it was hard to separate that. If I try again with this, a lot easier. In fact, it grips on straight onto the CPC and allows me to strip that back super quickly and easily. It kind of kills me doing these videos because I'm always hoping that the cheap one is going to be as good as the expensive one. And yet, so far, most of the time, the expensive one wins. So what would I say? Well, if you very rarely use a pair of side cutters, then of course these ones will do fine. Now, disclaimer, it looks like they're not VDE rated, which means that you need to be careful. Technically, these are not meant for doing electrical work if they're not VDE rated. With that disclaimer, if you're cutting dead cables or doing what you might do with some side cutters, will they do the job? Absolutely. If you're doing work with these on a daily basis though, is it worth paying 20 quid extra to have a pair like this? Well, it depends how deft you are at work, because I've seen a lot of electricians over the years who've got a lovely brand new pair of cutters like this, and then what do? They cut through a live cable, it goes bang, and it blows a hole in their cutters. And no matter how good the steel is on these Knipex cutters, if you cut through a live cable, it's going to go bang, and it's going to blow a hole in your cutters. Okay, now the other test that we need to do on these is actually stripping the wires. And again, a lot of people will say you're not supposed to strip wires with side cutters, but for me, growing up and doing my apprenticeship with my dad, this was all my dad used. He used side cutters, and I know a lot of older Sparks, they're just used to stripping wires completely with their side cutters, even maybe doing this, and this is a bit risky, doubling up the wires with the side cutters like that. If you do it carefully enough, you can do it without damaging the wire, and it works. So what's the difference when cutting and stripping wires with the Knipex versus the Draper? Again, not a lot, but the Knipex ones do feel nicer to work with. If you bend these over, actually I think the Draper ones are slightly blunter, and therefore it works better doing the doubling up with the Draper ones than it did with the Knipex ones. I felt like I had to be really careful to not squeeze too hard with the Knipex because they would just cut through the copper, but these ones didn't. They both do the job, but I've got to say, my feeling is that the Knipex ones are just a little bit nicer to work with. They're definitely a lot sharper. I can see the blade marks on there, whereas I couldn't with the Draper ones, but it does do the trick to twist wires together with it. So what is my overall opinion when it comes to these two sets of cutters? Well, I've got to say, hands down, for me, the Knipex, they win. As an electrician using a tool on a daily basis, I just think you can't beat the quality of Knipex tools, and that is why I have bought Knipex over and over again throughout my career as an electrician. I know that I can trust in these that if I do accidentally cut through a live cable, I'm not going to get an electric shock because they are properly VDE rated and tested. In fact, I'll pop up a little shot on the screen of what it looks like when they actually insulation test the tools, because it's quite fascinating. They do it in like a dipping bath, and they put a huge amount of voltage across them to test whether these handles are actually VDE rated properly or not. The Draper, unfortunately, we have no idea whether it's VDE rated or not. Probably if you cut through live cable, you're not going to get a shock, but it's not guaranteed. There's no certification, no testing that's been done on this as far as I can see. Does it cut through wires? Yes, it does. Does it let you strip wires? Yes, it does. But it's just not quite as nice to work with than the Knipex. So I would say if you're a DIYer who every so often you have to use a pair of side cutters, you want a cheap pair to stick in your tool collection, the Draper ones will be fine. But if you're a professional who uses this kind of tool on a daily basis, I would definitely recommend investing a little bit more in the Knipex version. They're going to last longer unless you cut through a live cable, and they're going to be much nicer to work with. That being said, there's links to both of these tools in the description below. If you buy using our Amazon links, it does support the channel. And if you like and subscribe, then it helps the channel to grow. And if you enjoy these comparison videos of cheap versus expensive tools, there's a playlist up here where you can watch a few more videos. So settle in, sit back and enjoy a few more. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.